Thank you very much for joining us today on a Sunday morning. Welcome to the Khaki Lab. This is a dedicated space where we continue our work of heritage evangelism, where a bug of heritage is planted into the minds of patrons like you who come here and support us. The Khaki Lab is part of the Khaki Heritage Foundation, a non-profit that can only be kept alive by benefactors like you. And how can you contribute? I know you want to ask me that question. Well, first and foremost, you can register for our events and come for our programs. Secondly, you can also donate to the Khaki Heritage Foundation. And lastly, word of mouth always helps, so please do refer us to your friends and family. Follow us on social media and also tag us whenever you like our programs and write about us. Today's program, as you know, hashtag The Secret Master, Pandit Arun Kashalkar, Khayal Mumbai I Literary and musical event with Sumana Ramanan ji and Sugandha Laturkar ji. A little bit about them. Sumana Ramanan is an awarded-winning journalist in a career spanning 3.5 decades. She has worked for leading media organizations in capacities including investigative reporter, feature writer, design correspondent, senior editor and columnist. For several years, she has also helped curate a prominent literary festival. She lives in Bangalore and as a die-hard Mumbaiite, she always has her heart and one foot here in our city. And this is the place where she grew up and where most of her works are. She is going to be joined by Sugandha Laturkar, who is among the finest Khayal singers of her generation, combining 3 leading styles namely Gwalior, Agra and Jaipur. She is an A-grade artist of All India Radio. She began her musical training at the age of 5 and since 2011 has been a student of Shri Arun Kashalkar, the protagonist of hashtag The Secret Master. She has an MSc in Botany and MA in Music and an Alankar from the Gandharva Mahavidyalaya. She will be accompanied on the tabla by Praveen Karkare and on the harmonium by Dhaneshwar Sonawani. Maybe give a round of applause to her. And before I request Sumana to take the center stage and take us through today's programs, I request everybody to kindly put your mobile phones on silent. We have a lot of music today, so trust me, you won't be needing anything from your technology. And if you do need to have tea or coffee, it's placed outside, but we would request you to give all your mind, body and spirit to our program today. With that, I request Sumana ji to please take it. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm so pleased to see you. I'll just quickly tell you what we're going to do this morning. For the first about 20 to 25 minutes, will be the literary part of the morning, where I'll be talking a little bit about my book, the genesis of the book, the structure, and the genres that I've used to write the book. And after that will be the musical and historical part of the morning, 1 hour, 15 minutes or so. And finally, there'll be a Q&A. In the musical and historical part, I will open with an introduction, and then she will sing. And in between, I will also explain a few things in between. There's a wide variety of backgrounds when it comes to music here, because I have my very senior and knowledgeable Guru Bandhus here. And I also have, so there's a whole range. So if I'm explaining the obvious to some of you, I apologize in advance. But this is meant to be a kind of a guided listening session for people who may not know much. So that's the, but who are passionate listeners. So I'm aiming at that's my target listener. So, yeah, and then finally there'll be a Q&A, and then there's a book. There are my copies of my books, so if people want to buy it, there are copies outside. So after 25 years of being a journalist, focusing largely on socio-economic issues, in 2015, I began writing about Hindustani music. And the term Hindustani music refers to art music with roots in North India and consists of 3 genres: Drupad, the oldest; Khayal, the most widespread; and Thumri, the most recent. Today, our focus will be on Khayal. In the first month after I began writing about Hindustani music, I was telling a knowledgeable music lover in Mumbai that I had not heard a musician from the Agra Gharana in a long time. The Agra Gharana is one of the 6 main stylistic traditions of Khayal today. The others are Gwalior, Jaipur, Rampur Sahaswan, Patiala, and Kirana, all named after the places where the founders were either born or spent extended periods as court singers. You haven't heard an Agra musician in a long time, the music lover asked me. Magar Agra Gharana to Mumbai mein hai, he said, switching to Hindi. He was referring specifically to the family of hereditary musicians descended from the Gharana's founder. In fact, until last year, this family of hereditary musicians all lived in a big joint family, not just in Mumbai, but on one floor of one building called Ruby Mansion in the Goalia Tank locality of South Bombay. In fact, as I started writing about this music, I learned that many of the very important singers of many of the other gharanas too lived in and around Bombay for extended periods of time, including the Jaipur Gharana's founder Alladia Khan and Gwalior music stalwarts such as Sharat Chandra Arolkar and Gajanan Bua Joshi. My conversation with this music lover reflected 2 important facets of Hindustani music. One, since the turn of the 20th century, Mumbai has been a hugely important center for the art form, a fact that even many long-time residents do not realize. And 2, that 100 years later, at the turn of the 21st century, vast parts of the city's Hindustani ecosystem have become hidden from view, marginalized by an increasingly commercialized mainstream. And I will talk about all that. Both these facets find expression in my non-fiction book, The Secret Master, Arun Kashalkar and A Journey to the Edge of Music. So let me start by talking about the book. At its core, I wanted my book to be a human drama about aesthetic idealism and artistic daring. But I felt that this human story was a product of larger social and cultural forces, and therefore had to be set against the backdrop of these forces. So throughout this human drama, I have illuminated the story by the story of the evolution of Khayal, its political economy, aesthetics, and also of Maharashtra's musical culture. So how did I begin to write this story? Despite being a long-standing concert goer and a student of music, I heard Pandit Arun Kashalkar for the first time in early 2016, almost a decade ago, in my 40s, and I was blown away by his music. I recently did a presentation in Kolkata on the top 10 hits of Arun Kashalkar, or standout features of his music. A link to that presentation will soon be available on my website, but I will also list these features at the end of today's session after you have had an opportunity to listen to what his style is through his very, very senior and accomplished student, Sugandha Laturkar. In addition, at that first concert, I also realized that he was a brilliant composer and had a loyal flock of students and fans, many of whom had accompanied him to the venue. I soon began learning from him and became a part of his large student community. I realized that he was part of a wider fringe culture or underground culture that was keeping the art form alive in its most vibrant colors. As I got to know my guru and the community around him, I was more and more impressed by his life story, the music in the fringe community, the sense of solidarity between everybody, and the way they were keeping the art form alive despite all the odds. And since I'm a journalist and my chief form of expression is language, I decided to write about all of these facets and embarked upon writing this book. So this book actually has 3 strands. In the first strand, which runs across the first parts of every chapter, I outline my journey learning from Pandit Arun Kashalkar. I had learned before for many years, but the scale of this music was something of a completely different order. Like someone said in the introduction, Anchal said in the introduction, his music style traverses 3 of the 6 major widespread gharanas of today, which is Gwalior, Agra, and Jaipur. I also write about what it means to be part of a large student community and how my guru, Pandit Arun Kashalkar, and his wife, Dhanashri, who is a very big support, were running this informal Gurukul in the 21st century despite all the challenges. He had taught hundreds of people, and when I joined, there were about 50 to 60 of us. In this strand, I also write about the larger underground culture in which our student community is embedded. I have explored the reasons for the rise of the underground culture and the nature of the contemporary mainstream Hindustani ecosystem in music, which has led to the marginalization of many wonderful musicians. This strand covers the period from 2016, after I met Pandit Arun Kashalkar, and is written in the first person. So there's an I, and Pandit Arun Kashalkar is first Arunji, and then when I begin learning from him, he becomes Guruji in this strand of the story. In this strand, I am somewhat a comical character, initially a floundering amateur among the professionals. And I am an eyewitness, and more specifically, I'm a participant observer. So I'm not just an eyewitness, because I was also trying to learn fairly seriously. So I am the prototypical participant observer that you see and that you find in anthropological accounts and in immersive journalism. So that's what this strand of the story draws from the tradition of ethnography and immersive journalism. The second strand, which consists of the second portions of every chapter, and also runs through the book, I trace the musical journey of Pandit Arun Kashalkar from 1943, when he was born, till 2015, until I met him. This strand is biographical, and since I was not an eyewitness, I reconstructed his life by interviewing him for hundreds of hours, interviewing also more than 150 people just for this strand, and visiting his small town in eastern Maharashtra and retracing his journey in stages from there to Mumbai, because from there he went to the district headquarters of Yavatmal, then to Nagpur, then to Dombivli, and then he came to Mulund, where he lives now. And in this strand, it's written in the third person, and Arun Kashalkar comes as Arun. I also weave in the history of Khayal into this strand, including the evolution of its political economy and aesthetics. In the third strand, I write about the aesthetics of Khayal based on all that I have learned so far, the bulk of which came from my 10 years with Pandit Arun Kashalkar, and from reading the work of other scholars, and from trying to explain basic ideas about this genre to friends and family who were not familiar with the music but very curious about it. This strand ends with a quote by Pandit Arun Kashalkar about a specific aesthetic aspect of Khayal. He's a poet, and he writes poetry in Marathi, and he is very articulate in both Hindi and English. And so my editor felt that I shouldn't bury all his direct speech in the narrative, and I should pull out the most evocative ones and put them at the end. And she also said, because he's an expert, his metaphors have more power, will have a special power. So I'm just going to read one of those quotes so that you get an idea. This is the first quote. Every Khayal musician attempts to achieve flow while improvising. When a musician produces ideas that have a forward momentum, he creates a feeling of flow. Flow is what you see in a river. Its moving water might encounter natural obstructions, like a boulder, but always finds a way around it. Similarly, a musician might even stall, but should always find a way to continue smoothly. Flow partly reflects a singer's control over rhythm. Without flow, a rendition sounds like patchwork. Every style has mediocre musicians who produce such patchwork. Now I'll move on to the genre of the book. Structure, what I have described so far, is concerned largely with the order of storytelling, while genre is concerned with the manner of storytelling. So the book has been inspired in big part by the genre of literary nonfiction. This genre emerged in the US in the late 1960s when the air was full of rebellion and people wanted to do things differently. Writers began experimenting with how they could adapt techniques of fiction to tell real stories, what they call the literature of reality. Literary critics cite one article which appeared in the Esquire magazine called The Loser about a boxer, written by Gay Tallis as the pioneering work in this genre. The writer Tom Wolfe said that this article was the new journalism, and then it evolved into literary nonfiction as people started writing whole books about in this mode. Other writers like Norman Mailer, for instance, wrote pioneering works like The Armies of the Night. So what does it mean really to use techniques of fiction while writing nonfiction? To put it a little simplistically, but powerfully, it means trying to show rather than tell. And showing is visualizing and dramatizing, whereas telling is to summarize. One tries to unfold the story through a sequence of scenes, like in a play or in a film. In a scene, a writer describes a setting using all the senses: sight, sound, smell, touch. The writer accurately reproduces dialogue, describing the tone of voice, body language, and facial expressions. The writer includes monologue, delving into what people are thinking and not saying, perhaps. Doing this requires gaining the trust of your subjects and entails a lot of work and much more work than using the traditional method of just reporting what happened. Further, one must string these scenes together to create a compelling narrative. You can't just put arbitrary scenes together, because if you're trying to emulate fiction, you need to have a forward-moving momentum. The scenes have to be carefully selected and structured. They have to be linked to create a forward momentum and a plot. They also need to show how the characters evolve over time. One has to do all this while remaining faithful to the facts. It's a time-consuming genre, which is why it took me 7 years. So I will just read, I'll give you a sample to show you exactly to give you a flavor of what I mean by trying to write non-fiction like fiction while remaining absolutely faithful to the facts. Clackety-clack, it's flying. Your turn. Oh, Baba. Arun heard the carefree squeals of boys playing Vitti Dandu from his home's music room, where he was having his evening lesson with his father. He felt a twinge of longing for the normal life of a 9-year-old. For the previous 4 years, he had spent almost all his mornings and evenings learning music. He had felt less lonely when, one by one, his 3 younger brothers had joined him, and a few children in town had started attending the evening classes. But he sometimes yearned for the pleasure of unsupervised play. The only physical activity that he had time for was an occasional swim in the nearby river. But before his yearning could make itself at home, he was jolted by the sound of the tabla. Shriram Bua had started playing. He and Balaji Bua were attached to the Gopal Krishna Mandir and regularly came over to Arun's home to provide accompaniment to his father's students. Shriram Bua and Balaji Bua were kirtankars who performed the kirtan, which combined storytelling, singing, and philosophical exposition, largely using religious and mythological characters. In the pre-television era, the kirtan was hugely popular in the Marathi-speaking regions. The two men had undergone formal training in Khayal and Drupad because the kirtan used rag-based music. When Arun's father, who was largely self-taught, had a question about rag grammar, he asked them and other kirtankars who passed through the town. Shriram Bua then started singing a Drupad composition in Rag Yaman, Parabrahma Parameshwara, set to the 12-beat Chautal. Arun was immediately charmed by it and forgot all about Vitti Dandu. For him, compositions were like new toys. As Shriram Bua began singing the second verse, Arun decided that the composition's appeal lay in its slow but sure-footed pace, evoking an elephant's regal gait, its long means or glides, reminding him of the sinuous movements of the animal's trunk. So, so while the spine of the book is literary non-fiction, I did not want to be absolutist about it and use just one genre. Firstly, when you're trying to reconstruct scenes from people's lives, there may be things that they don't remember. They may not want to tell you. There may be things that other people don't want to tell you. Or you may be getting conflicting information. So at some times, you cannot insist on recreating scenes the way you envisioned, and you cannot have this pure literary tone throughout. You have to sometimes summarize. So one reason that you may not be able to stick to literary nonfiction throughout is just because for technical reasons. But another reason is that I also wanted to deploy the full range of non-fiction techniques and use that what was appropriate to various situations. So while literary non-fiction forms the spine of the book, my book includes historical narrative. It includes explanatory writing, especially in the third strand while I'm explaining things to people, to the reader. It also includes argumentation. There's a whole chapter which is an essay where I'm making a point and I'm adducing evidence and also addressing the counter arguments and addressing possible flaws in the argumentation. And so that form is argumented writing. And there is also parts in which I'm just exploring an idea. So that's the exploratory essay. So I have combined everything that I've learned and all the nonfiction that I've enjoyed whenever the situation demanded it. So that's the literary part of my talk. And as I said, there are books to buy later if you want. And I've only given you a glimpse of the book. So now I will turn, the second part of this morning is going to be, like I said, historical and musical. Here now Sugandha will perform 3 rags, and I will weave in commentary on the history and aesthetics of Khayal. On the historical side, I will describe 5 pivotal developments in the evolution of Khayal, two of them before she begins her performance, and one each after her 3 renditions, which makes 5. And one at, yeah. On the aesthetic side, I will introduce 5 concepts, but I will introduce all 5 of them before she begins so you can see them come alive in her singing, and I will reinforce them in between her singing. And the first thing I want to say is that this music is stylized music. It is not just singing a song. There are many rules, and one has to sing within those constraints. So we'll talk about that as I go along. So the concepts of rag and tal, to begin with the history now, the concepts of rag and tal, which I will explain in a few minutes, are ancient and underpin all Indian art music. But the genres that are practiced today, and especially Khayal, emerged much later. Now, there's a common belief that Khayal evolved from Drupad, and there are all sorts of myths and stories and anecdotes. But the historical narrative that I have reconstructed in my book is based on the latest academic research, because I used to subscribe to an academic service, and I got the latest research and links to online talks, etc. The historical evidence strongly suggests that Khayal emerged as a distinct genre independently of Drupad in the late 16th to early 17th century in the Sufi communities between Delhi and Jaunpur. Jaunpur is in today's Uttar Pradesh. Khayal emerged when musicians from the Sufi communities began blending Persian genres that they sang in their devotional gatherings with secular regional genres that used one of many Hindi dialects. Among the Persian forms were Qawl and Tarana, and the prominent regional genre among the whole lot was something called the Chutkula, an elite court genre that was a love song consisting of 4 lines. This form was most likely the progenitor of the Drut Bandish or fast composition, which you will hear this morning. There is considerable evidence that the tarana, which was one of the ingredients that went into making the Drut Bandish, was invented by Amir Khusro, a polymath who lived in the late 13th to early 14th centuries. The tarana is a composition with resonant syllables that have no meaning and is sung within a tal cycle with a percussionist expressing it on the instrument. The Chutkula was most likely the creation of Sultan Hussain Shah Sharki, who ruled Jaunpur in the second half of the 15th century. Hussain Shah Sharki also invented Rag Jaunpuri, with which Sugandha will begin her recital. The second pivotal development in the history of Khayal came in the early 18th century in Delhi, when Niyamat Khan, whose pen name was Sadarang, a famous Drupad singer, ushered in many innovations. As Khayal became very popular, a lot of Drupad singers began switching to Khayal. And so when there are some common beliefs. So Tansen, everyone has heard of Tansen, he was a Drupad singer. So in Akbar's court, what was being sung was Drupad. It was only from Shah Jahan's time that the court music also included Khayal. Drupad continued to be sung, but by then, Khayal had moved from just being a devotional form sung by Sufis into the courts. The first thing that, very important thing that Niyamat Khan did is to slow down the tempo of the fast composition. So you will see all that here. He slowed it down. There was some elementary, rudimentary improvisation in the fast composition. But what he did by slowing down the tempo of compositions is to dramatically expand the scope of improvisation, and I'll explain how. He introduced a technique by which a singer could improvise within a slow composition by elongating the long vowels of the song text using the vowels, right? So, akar, ikar, okar. You will see if there are, for instance, the words of the slow composition that she'll sing is called So Abharanga Ghulya, Mai. So is O is a long vowel. So you can elongate that song text and express the rag through that sound. There's Mai. Ma is a long word, and E is a long vowel. Sorry. So he introduced this, and it was possible because the slow tempo created more time between beats. The invention of the slow composition created the opportunity for musicians to sing in all tempos between the slow and fast. So you had the Dhruv composition was very fast because the Tarana is extremely fast, and then he slowed it considerably. So that opened the opportunity for Khayal musicians to sing in all the beats in between. And so that today, musicologists have said that Khayal has the largest range of tempos of any music in the world. One of the largest range of tempos. Of course, you can't say any of these things categorically, but people who have studied world music do say that that's. So these are the two pivotal developments, and I will tell you three more as we go along. Now I'll quickly just summarize some aesthetic points that you all can follow. The first thing, like I said, is that rag and tal are ancient concepts. So what is a rag? So one of the metaphors I've used in my book is that you can think of a rag as a language. So one could think of each of the notes as the vocabulary of a language, and the rules for combining these notes as the rules of grammar. Together, the way the notes are strung together to create phrases, and the manner in which these phrases are linked together is what Hindustani musicians call the chalan of a rag, or a gait, literally the way of going. So I will ask Sugandha just to show you the chalan of Jaunpuri. Maybe using sargams, or either way, whatever you feel comfortable. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. Just a few, yeah.
So first goes like this. Sa re ma ma la la ma pa la ni sa la ma pa la ma pa la.
So in class, Guruji would sing all, this is just a glimpse. So he would sing this chalan for 1 hour so that we are steeped in that language and we can pick it up. So one of Guruji's foundational philosophy of teaching music is that it's a language. And you have to immerse students in an atmosphere as though and an atmosphere that is akin to what they would have experienced when they were learning their mother tongues. And he says music is meant for expression, and so he doesn't make us do all these drills, alankars and all in the beginning. He says you have to do that later, but you need a context. Because a child, you don't teach a child grammar and vocabulary. A child has an urge to communicate, and so you should use music to communicate. So, a Khayal student's training largely consists in becoming fluent in dozens of rags. After the Nomto Malap, Sugandha will sing a slow composition, And the slow composition is something that cuts across all Khayal styles, and it's considered to be the pinnacle of Khayal singing. And she will end Jaunpuri with a fast composition. Both slow and fast compositions have two verses, the Sthayi and Antara, and mainly use a blend of Hindi dialects, chiefly Braj Bhasha. The song text of the compositions are almost always in the voice of a woman. The Khayal singer renders the default tune of the composition a couple of times and then uses the words to improvise within the rag, like as I said, using akar, ikar, okar, and you will see that in action here. And the main aim of doing this is not to convey the literal meaning of a composition. The composition is a vehicle for the rag. But compositions subliminally evoke different aspects of the genre's cultural history. For instance, the traditional slow composition in Jaunpuri that Sugandha will sing is one of a recurring type of love song in Khayal. In it, the singer pines for her lover and asks the Sufi saint Nizamuddin Aulia to relieve her of her life sorrows. The fast composition, composed by our Guru Pandit Arun Kashalkar, is another common type of love song, one of a woman complaining about a two-timing lover. Why should I celebrate the arrival of someone who has been amusing himself with his mistress, she asks in the first line. So I've spoken about rag. Now I want to quickly explain, before we can start the recital, I want to quickly explain four related concepts which are connected with the rhythm. So once you have a composition, there is a concept that is common to all Indian art music but finds a particular expression in Khayal. It's called the avartan, which is a rhythmic cycle. And that rhythmic cycle is expressed using on the tabla with a particular tal. So there are many kinds of rhythmic cycles of different durations with different beats, but they are all cyclical because they repeat throughout. And when I say that an avartan repeats throughout a rendition, I don't mean that we are stuck in time, but that the avartan creates a feeling of beginnings and endings. Humans live by such time cycles, such the 24-hour day, 30-day month, 365-day year. We create these feelings, and that's how this is also structured. Now, specifically in Khayal, the first beat of the avartan, called the sum, is very important. Always in a slow composition and very often in a fast composition, a portion of the first line is sung slightly before the first beat or sum and is completed after the singer arrives on the first beat. This arrival on the sum is of great aesthetic importance in Khayal. It is the highlight of every avartan. The portion of the first line that appears before the sum is called the mukhra, or face, because it appears before the rhythmic cycle begins, which is like the rest is the body and this is the face of the composition. Its invocation in each cycle prepares the audience for the arrival of the sum and creates an hypnotic effect. So I have discussed 5 concepts. One is of rag as language, the avartan, which is the rhythmic cycle expressed on the tal, which is a specific expression of a rhythmic cycle played on a percussion instrument, in this case the tabla, the sum, the first beat of the tal, and the mukhra, the portion of a composition's first line that appears before the sum. Now she will start. Before she starts, I'll just tell you the words of the slow composition are so abaranga ghuliya mai sajana milavo raat bhailava. If you can just try to, if you can hear through how she's singing, if you can figure out what the mukhra is, because there will be an emphasis when she arrives on the sum, so maybe you can, because she's going to be repeating that mukhra again and again, so perhaps you can pick up what the mukhra is. The composition is set to teen tal, which is a favorite of Jaipur Gharana singers, who use its relatively spare sound. So different tabla, the tals have different sounds and tabla syllables, and some are more filigreed than others. So this has a relatively spare sound, so that the Jaipur Gharana singers could create intricate two-note and offbeat patterns. We won't go too much into detail about the differences of gharanas because there's limited time. But you will also see those designs in Sugandha's rendition, especially in the Tan section. Tans are rapid passages of notes showcasing virtuosity, and they come at the end of an improvisation. Overall, Sugandha's rendition of Jaunpuri will show effects of both the Agra and Jaipur styles. The fast composition that she will sing is set to Ek Tal, a 12-beat cycle. So I think Sugandha, Jaunpuri.
Thank you. Namaste. Namaste everyone. Remembering my both gurus, Pandit Subhash Kashalkar ji and Pandit Arun Kashalkar ji, I begin this recital with Jaunpuri, like Sumana ji told you. I would specially like to mention Subhash Kashalkar ji's name because it was because of his training that I could actually understand and I could cope up with Arun ji's talim. So Subhash Kashalkar ji is my first guru who stays in Nagpur. I was trained under him for almost 10 to 12 years since my childhood till 2011. So maybe from 2000 to 2011, I got training under Subhash Kashalkar ji, and then I shifted to Mumbai. And the two brothers, they decided amongst themselves that Sugandha ko abhi Mumbai bhejenge, and that is how I came to Mumbai. And from 2011 onwards, like till now, I am receiving talim from Arun Kashalkar ji. So with your permission, I start with Jaunpuri. Re na re ra 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 na re ra no re na re 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 na ra la 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 ra re na ra re da na na re na no na de na no re da na ra ra re na 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 re ra na re ra na re ra na 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 no na ra na na re na ra no re da na re no na 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 no na no na 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 re na re re no re ra re na na re re na re na re da na na re na re no na ra na re na no re 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 na na no na de re na na de na 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 no re da na re na re 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 na re re de re de re 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 na na ra re ra re na na ra no re da na na re na na ra re na no re da na 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 re na na re 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 na na no re re na 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 no re da na 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 no re 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 na 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 re re na da na re re na re re na re na de na re re no re re na re re de ra na na re na no re de re 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 na 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 re re na na de no re re na 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 re re na re re na de no re re na de da na re re na no na ra na re na no re 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 no na ra re de de re 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 na de ra no re 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 na na re re na de re no re de na re re na re re no re na de na de re no re re na re re na ra 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 na no re ra na re ra no re na ra da na re no re da re 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 ra re re no re ra na na re na re 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 na de ra no re ra na da re 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 na re ra na re ra na re ra no de re re ra na na re na no re ra na 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 re ra ro na 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 re ra 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 de ra na 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 re ra 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 re ra ro na 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 re na 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 re na 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 re ta na na re ta na na no ta na na no ta na na no ta na na no ta na no ta na no ta na na re na 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 re na 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 re na no re ra 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 na 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 re ra 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 na na re ra ra na 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 re ra 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 re ra na 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 re ra 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 re ra na 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 ra re ra ra na 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 re ra 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 na na re ra na 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 re ra 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 na na re na na re ra 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 na 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 re ra na na re ra no da ra ra na 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 re ra na na re ra ra re ra ra na na re ra na 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 no ra 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 na na re ra 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 na ta na 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 re ra ra na na ra 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 na re ra 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 na 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 re na 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 re na na re na 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 re na no re ra re ra na 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 re ra re ra na na re ra 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 na na re ra 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 na na re ra ra na 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 re ra na 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 re ra 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 na re ra na 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 re ra ra na no re ra re ra na na re ra re ra na na re ra ra re ra ra re ra ra re ra 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 na 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 re na 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 re ra ra re ra 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 no re ra ro na 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 re ta na 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 re ta na na re ra na 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 re ra ra na no re ra 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 na 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 re ta na na re ta na na no ta na na no ta na na re na 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 re na 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 re na 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 re na no na 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 ra da na 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 re ra 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 no no da na 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 re ra no da na no da na no da na no da re na 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 re na 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 re ra 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 no da na na re na 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 no na 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 re na no re 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 na re re na no re ra na na no re na 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 re na 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 re na no na 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 he so abarang bholiya ma सजना मिलावो बैलवा सो अबारंग बोलिया सजना मिलावो बैलवा सो अबा सजन मिलावो रात बगिलवा सो अबरग गुलिया गुलिया सजन मिला सजना मेरा वो रात बगिला वासो वरंग गुलिया अबरंग गुलिया माय अबरंग गुलिया माय अबरंग गुलिया अबरंग गुलिया माय सजना मेरा रात बयेलावा अबरंग गुलिया माये अबरंग गुलिया गुलिया माये अबरंग गुलिया माय सजना मिलावो रात बगिलवा अबरंग रंग गुलिया रंग गुलिया माय सजन मिलावो रात भइलवा सो अबरंग गुलिया अबरंग गुलिया माये सजना मिलावो रात भइलवा अबरंग गुलिया माय सजना मिलावो रात भइलवा अबरंग गुलिया अबरंग गुलिया माय सजना मिलावो रात भइलवा अबरंग गुलिया अबरंग गुलिया रंग गुलिया माय अबरंग पाहिला पीरा निजामुद्दीन औलिया जन्म जन्म के दुख भूल गया वरंग गोलिया सजन मिलावो रात भैलवा अवरंग गुलिया हमारे सजन मिलावो रात भैलवा अवरंग गुली पम पम गरे सा पम पम गरे सा नि सा रे म म प नि ध प ध म प ध नि सा रे सा म रे सा नि ध प म प ध नि सा नि ध प म प म गरे सा अवरंग बोले ध म प नि ध प म प म गरे म प ध म प नि ध प ध प ध म प गरे म प प नि ध प ध म प रे म प म गरे सा नि सा रे म म प प नि ध प म प ध नि सा म गरे सा नि सा रे सा नि ध प म प ध नि सा प नि ध प म गरे सा अवरंग गोलिया सा नि सा रे सा नि ध प म प ध नि सा नि ध प ध प ध रे म प ध म प म ग रे सा प म प म ग रे सा नि ध प ध म प ध नि सा नि रे सा म ग रे सा नि सा रे सा नि ध प म प ध नि सा रे रे सा नि ध प म म प नि ध प ध म प रे म प ध म प म ग रे सा अवरंग गोलिया पद पद म प म प रे रे म प नि नि ध प नि नि ध प म म प रे रे म प नि नि ध प म म प ध नि सा सा नि ध प म म प नि ध प म म प रे रे म प ध म प म ग रे सा प म प रे रे म प नि नि ध प म म प ध नि सा म ग रे सा नि नि सा प प नि ध प म प म ग रे सा नि सा अवरंग गोलिया अवरंग गोलिया माए अवरंग गोलिया माए सजना मिलावो अब रंग गुलिया अब रंग गुलिया अब रंग गुलिया सजन मिलावो रात भइला अब रंग गुलिया अब रंग गुलिया अब रंग गुलिया सजन मिला मोरात बैलवा अब रंग गुलिया सजना मिलावो रात भइलवा रंग गुलिया रंग गुलिया आज काहे मना बन आए, 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 आज काहे मना बन आए. आज काहे मना बन आए, किन सोतन संग बिरमाए, आज काहे मना बन आए, किन सोतन संग बिरमाए, आज काहे मना बन आए, 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 काहे मना बन आए, आज 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 मना मना बन आए, मना बन आए, आज काहे मना बन आए, काहे मना बन आए, आज काहे करत मोसो झूठी बतिया, करत मोसो झूठी बतिया, करत मोसो झूठी बतिया, हमारी नलीनी खबरिया, हमारी नलीनी खबरिया, जाओ वही जाओ रसदास जाओ, जाओ वही जाओ रसदास, ना मानूंगी तोरी बात, आज काहे मना बन आए, 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 आज काहे आज 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 मना बन आए, आज 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 मना बन ma pa ni da pa ma pa da ni sa ma pa ni da pa ma pa re ma pa da ma pa ma ga re sa ka pa za ni re za ni da pa pa da ni sa ma pa ni da pa pa re ma pa da ma pa ma ga re sa aaj ka sa za ni da pa ni da pa ma ga re sa ka pa sa ni re za ni da pa da ni sa pa ni da pa pa re ma pa da ma ga re sa aaj ka manavan aaye aaj ka मनावन आए आज का है मनावन आए आज का मनावन आए आज का मनावन आए आज का आज का मनावन आए आज का आज का आज का
Literally prosaic words, but that's the format of the morning. So, I'm just going to move to the third historical development. A third key development in Khayal took place after the British brutally crushed the rebellion of 1857 and the Mughal Empire decisively collapsed. Khayal singers, almost all of whom until then belonged to Muslim hereditary musician families, moved out of the Delhi region and sought employment in other royal courts. Sorry, I forgot. So, yeah. At that time, the Maratha Empire was on the ascendant, so many of these singers went to courts that were part of the Maratha Confederacy, such as Gwalior, Baroda and Kolhapur. The Gwalior court was particularly important because it included a whole lot of musicians that had refined Sadarang's innovations. So a lot of the, like for instance, Bade Muhammad Khan, who had added Taan singing in a very big way to Khayal. Many of them had moved from the Delhi region to Lucknow and then come to Gwalior. In the same courts were many Marathi-speaking musicians who had gone from the Marathi regions to Gwalior because the rulers were Marathi-speaking. They were from the Maratha kingdom. There, the Muslim hereditary musicians taught many Hindu musicians who had moved to Gwalior. Now, in the second rendition, Sugandha will present Rag Brindavani Sarang with an emphasis on the Gwalior style of Khayal. If you notice closely in the first half in Jaunpuri, although like the Agra Gharana uses mainly the lyrics, like I said, with Ikar, Okar, to elongate the rag, the Jaipur Gharana singers usually use only Akar. So in the beginning, because she was doing a combination of Agra and Jaipur, she showed the Akar very clearly, but she also did a lot of what I call bowl work, which is what Agra is very good for, using the lyrics and rhythmically parsing them and making all sorts of complicated designs, which she also did. Now she's going to use the Gwalior style. Some people use Akar, some people use bowl. It's a combination. I mean, it's a personal choice. So Sugandha will present Brindavani Sarang with an emphasis on the Gwalior style. She will not sing the Nomto Mala, but will go directly to the slow composition set to Tilwada, another 16-beat tal, but one that has different syllables from Teen Tal. It was some people consider it to be a version of Teen Tal, but it's got such an individual personality that some people say it's a tal on its own, whatever. The slow composition that she will sing is a third kind of love song in which a woman is preparing to celebrate the arrival of her lover. But here too she evokes the Sufi saint whose benevolent light has precipitated this arrival. After that she will sing a fast composition. The fast composition falls in the category of songs about Krishna. Here, the woman, presumably Radha, talks about how Krishna is blocking her way and teasing her in various ways. Now, Khayal singing Sufi communities had very close ties with Vaishnavite sects and yogis. As a result, many Khayal compositions are about Krishna and also several mention yogis. Brindavani Sarang.
आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदन नूर काजे बाजिला पियू मोरे मंदारवा आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदन नूर काजे बाजिला पियू मोरे मंदारवा आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदन नूर ख्वाजे बाजिला पियू मोरे मंदारवा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा बजला जब धावरा बाजो रे हिंदला नूर बाज बजला पियो मोरे आज बधावरा जब धावरा बधावरा आज बधावरा बाजो रे बाज बाजला आज बधावरा जब धावरा जब धावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदला रंग नूर आज आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा रसबतिया रे न जा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदलरा आज बधावरा आज आज बधा आवरा बाजो हिंदलरा नूर आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आजा बधावरा बाजो हिंदला नूर घर आज बधावरा आज बधावरा आज बधावरा बाजो हिंदला रंग नूर आज बधावरा आज आज बधावरा आज बधावरा बधावरा बाजो हिंदला रंग नूर ख्वाज आज बधावरा रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया 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 सोनी पटनी ठुर निडर श्यामरी रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया सोनी पटनी ठुर निडर श्यामरी रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया रोको ना रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, सोनी पटनी ठुर निडर श्यामली, रोको ना चल मोरी। हूँ तो कहूँ जसोदा से जाय अब, हूँ तो कहूँ जसोदा से जाय, मोरी मानत नहीं कनाई करत छल कित, रोको ना चल मोर डगरिया, रोको ना चल मोरी। हूँ तो कहूँ जसोदा से जाय अब, हूँ तो कहूँ जसोदा से जाय, मोरी मानत नहीं कनाई करत छल कित, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, रोको ना चल मोरी, रोको ना रोको ना चल मोरी। रोको ना चल, रोको ना, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, रोको ना। रोको ना चल मोरी डगर, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, सोनी पटनी ठुर निडर श्यामली, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया, रोको ना चल, रोको ना चल, रोको ना चल मोरी डगरिया।
And so we move to the fourth pivotal development in the evolution of Khayal. Many of the Marathi-speaking musicians in Gwalior came back to Maharashtra and propagated this genre. At the turn of the 19th century, Khayal spread like wildfire in western Maharashtra. Mumbai in particular became a magnet for Hindustani musicians. One of the main reasons was that the city grew to become the country's most prominent commercial and industrial center, second only to London in economic importance for the British Empire. This prosperity had many spin-offs. Bombay saw the rise of a thriving entertainment industry, which at that point consisted of the genre of Parsi theatre, which was in Gujarati and Urdu, and subsequently Marathi musicals, both of which hired classical musicians to train their actors. Gramophone recording companies set up base in the city, and wealthy individuals began patronizing classical music. Finally, two individuals, the musician V.D. Paluskar and musicologist V.N. Bhatkande, both based in Bombay, spearheaded efforts to make this music accessible to a wider swathe of the middle class. Paluskar made Bombay the headquarters of his pan-Indian network of music schools, the Gandharva Mahavidyalaya, while Bhatkande, who was also based in Bombay, collected many compositions from hereditary musicians and compiled them in a series of books. These musicians were perhaps not successful in producing performers, but they did expand the base of listeners. Many of these listeners established music circles, some of which continue to organize concerts till today. One of the oldest ones was the Suburban Music Circle, which still holds concerts in Santa Cruz West. And there was one recently of a concert by Shruti Sarolikar, a very fine singer of the Jaipur Gharana. Among the plethora of musicians who came to Mumbai was Anant Manohar Joshi, or Antu Bua, the father of Gajanan Bua Joshi, who was one of Arun Kashalkar's main gurus. Antu Bua, until then, had been a court musician in a small princely state called Aund in Satara district that was part of the larger Maratha Empire. He came to Mumbai and set up a school in the island city, but eventually moved out to Dombivli just outside Mumbai. Sugandha will now present one of Antubua's compositions in rag Shri. Shri is traditionally sung in the late afternoon or evening, but occasionally it can be sung now. Shri has some very typical melodic movements. Among them is the meend. Meend is a glide, and the glide is perhaps the defining sound of Hindustani music. And this long meend from Komal Re to Komal Pa, to Pa, and from Pa to Komal Re, it's a very long glide. It's a very defining glide. The composition that Sugandha will sing describes a devotee of Ram urging people to get a view of the Lord as he arrives in his chariot. This shows how the subject of compositions expanded to reflect the cultural backgrounds of the Khayal singers who increasingly started singing Khayal. Shri.
Which Shri will conclude? Which Shri will conclude? Which Shri will conclude? तीन ताल मध्य लगे. चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को रघुनंदन रथ में आवत है रघुनंदन रथ में आवत है देव सकल कुसुमन बरसन को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को रघुनंदन रथ में आवत है देव सकल कुसुमन बरसन को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम चलो रे माई राम सिया चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को राम छवि निरखियात सुंदर राम छवि निरखियात सुंदर पाछे लक्ष्मण भाई दास हनुमंत चरण विनियत भरत शत्रुघ्न चमर झूलावतनी को राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम राम छवि निरखियत सुंदर राम छवि निरखियत सुंदर पाछे लक्ष्मण भाई दास हनुमंत चरण विनियत भरत शत्रुघ्न चमर झूलावतनी को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया राम सिया चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम पम पद मगरे गरे सा चलो रे माई पम पसा निरे निनि ध पम ध मगरे गरे सा नि सा चलो रे माई पसा ध निनि ध पम पद मगरे गरे परे गरे सा चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन पनि रे गरे गरे सा रे सा नि ध पम पनि सा रे निनि ध पम पद मगरे म पद मगरे सा नि सा चलो माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो पम पद मगरे गरे re ma pa sa ni re ni ni da pa ma pa ni re ga re sa ni re sa ni da pa ma pa da ma ga re sa ni sa chalo mai ram pa ma pa da ma ga re pa ma da pa sa ni re ni da pa ma pa da ma ga re pa ma da ma ga re sa chalo re mai ram siya darshan ko chalo re mai ram ha ha चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम चलो रे माई राम राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया चलो रे चलो माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम सिया राम छवि निरखी अत सुंदर राम छवि राम छवि राम छवि निरखी राम छवि निरखी अत सुंदर पाछे लक्ष्मण भाई दास हनुमंत चरण विनीत भरत शत्रुघ्न चमर झुलावतनी को चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शन को चलो रे माई राम चलो रे माई राम चलो रे माई राम सिया दर्शना
Let me end with the final development. After 1990, when India started liberalizing its economy, we saw the rise of private. Okay, no, sir. Can I have that?
Yeah, so after the 1990s, when we started liberalizing our economy, we saw the rise of private companies for the first time that started organizing concerts. And at the same time, over time, there was a decline of the All India radio. This led dramatically to a decline in the quality of listening because people were not hearing this language. And commercial imperatives began driving the concert scene. And because Bombay was the most industrialized and was a commercial center, the commercialization, so it also led the way in patronizing Hindustani music at the turn of the 20th century. It has also led the way in the commercialization of Hindustani music. Businesses who were organizing concerts had to get money from sponsors increasingly who had not heard this music, and had to fill it with listeners also who hadn't heard this music. So they had to fill large auditoriums because they were businesses and they wanted to make money. And so they had to appeal to the lowest common denominator of the listening public. There were no moderating forces such as state-run institutions or big non-profit organizations. For instance, I must say that the NCPA, which was founded with a mandate to preserve traditional Indian art forms, took a dramatic turn, pouring all its money almost to Western music. And the Indian music department has also not renewed itself and does not have its ear to the ground, which has led to a situation in which some of the best musicians are not heard in the mainstream today. And what is passing for Hindustani music in the mainstream is increasingly some kind of extremely diluted and increasingly packaged fare. for people who really don't know much about the music. Like I said, this whole music is about improvising and producing literature in a rag. If you don't know the language of the rag, you're not going to really be able to tell whether the person is producing that literature or not. It's like, so the listening public has to be exposed to this music in a much larger way. And when they see things in the mainstream, have to retain a little slight skepticism before they buy into what's going on. So that is why I have not, that's why the name The Secret Master of my book, because I had not heard him, even though I was a very regular concert goer. And I just want to end by saying why I found his music so impressive. The first thing is that his rag renditions were so full of ras, or they had so much flavor. And when I researched this book and talked to musicians, they said he is one of the foremost experts on rag, the physiognomy of rags, because he has learned three of the major gharanas, and he knows, so his repertoire is vast, and he knows how to keep the rags apart from one another, what exactly is allowed in one rag, what is not allowed in another rag. So that's one. The second thing is that he's absolute master of rhythm. If you've seen Sugandha's thing, there's enormous amounts of rhythm in a way that is unprecedented in Hindustani music. I come from a family which is interested in Carnatic music, where rhythm plays a very big role. And for the first time, I heard a Hindustani musician whose rhythm was almost at that level. So there's rhythm. Then he is a master of three gharanas, and he can combine them very fluently, and can also keep them apart. So Gwalior, Agra, and Jaipur. So that's five. And number 6 is that he has a very extensive middle portion. A lot of Khayal singers start very slowly with the alap, and they suddenly jump to the virtuosic tans. And this had always bothered me. And when I heard him for the first time, I saw how he slowly, even she does it, and she was telling Praveen to increase the speed very, very subtly. She would just tap very lightly, and then Praveen would increase the speed. So by the time it comes to the tans, you don't even know that the speed has increased from very slow to very fast. And in the middle section, he did many things like the sargams, the using the names of the notes to create designs. Also, he did what he did called bol laikari, using the words of the bandish to create a lot of rhythmic patterns, which also you might have noticed. So there's a whole middle section. And his sargams are also very layered. Usually a lot of Hindustani music sargams are just linear. They kind of go up and down. And they're, unfortunately, many of them, some singers, it just becomes an exercise in going up and down very fast. There's not enough of design and thought given to how to structure them with the tal, which is what my Guruji has also done. And there are other things, but again, it will be on my website. I've done the top 10 hits. And I just want to end with one thing, and I want to say, the subtitle is Arun Kashalkar and a Journey to the Edge of Music, and people have been asking me, what is the edge? So, in English you say an art form is edgy, or an artist is edgy when they have pushed the boundaries of creativity. So that is what I thought. It's a journey to the edge of music in the sense of edge of his own art form. And also because he was marginalized, and he literally lives on the edge of Bombay because he's in the last suburb of Mulund. Beyond that is the next district of Thane. So he's physically on the edge also of Bombay, which is still the center. And the third meaning of edge is, if you see, I told you the avartan is very important and how you come to the sum. And you'll see it in Sugandha's music also. They push, they really play with that edge, which is that, you give less and less space till you come, and then you try to fill the mukhra in that very short space, and you keep the listener on tenterhooks. That, okay, am I going to come to the sum because you're packing it? So he's a master of, he's a razor sharp. The way he comes to the sum is razor sharp. So that is also edgy. So this thing has 3 meanings. So with that, I'll conclude. And if we have any questions, we'd love to take, for her or for me.
So in terms of the aesthetics of your Guruji, was there a decisive moment or the period in which he really found his voice as an artist after. I mean, normally in any art form, you find your voice, like you learn of it anything.
Yeah.
There's a decisive turn maybe in a couple of some point.
Yeah.
Was there such a turn?
I would say maybe a phase, because he was all set to make it in Bombay. Everyone kept saying he's the next star, and then what happened is the ecosystem changed, and so he didn't really quite couldn't adapt, and so he kind of retreated. And in a way, that actually helped him, because if you have a very active performing career, then you're constantly worried about what the audience is going to say, and you have to be relevant. You don't have time. But because he did continue to perform but at low-key things. So after 40, that's when he finished his training, because he trained with 5 people. Besides his father, he trained with 5 people. And then after that, I think the relatively low-key performing career allowed him to focus on the fundamentals of the art form. And I say in my book that secret masters like him nourish the roots of the art form, because they really are, they don't have to worry about whether they're going to be relevant to the market. So they can really do things which are radical. And also teach and build a whole listening community. So you'll see all these students and all, I mean, he's built a huge community of listeners who really understand the art form. So he used to sing at his home every day for people. So they came and he trained their ears so yeah. So it was in an ironic way that it was because he withdrew from the so-called mainstream, or was forced or was marginalized by the mainstream, that I suspect, I mean, this is just, it's a hypothetical thing, that I think that it gave him much more time to, and also the freedom to, yeah.
I have a very basic question,
Yeah.
something a bit done also. But thing is, this Drupad music is derived from Vedic incantations. Is that true?
Yeah, I think from the Samaveda, I think it does come from there. Yeah.
And then Drupad, once with the Islamic influence, it kind of you mentioned Sufi and all these people. So, what was the basic kind of tweaking, or let's say the transformation in the Drupad which came about?
Like I said, I don't know.
You mentioned it,
That, yeah, no, I mentioned in the beginning that Khayal did not emerge from Drupad.
you said that.
Yeah. So, but it was influenced by Drupad later, because Niyamat Khan, Sadar, all the people who were many of the people who took to Khayal later, initially the people who took to Khayal were Sufi musicians who were not singing Drupad. They were singing Tarana, Call, it was a devotional form. Khayal was a devotional form.
Those came from what roots?
I said Tarana and Chutkula. The Tarana with Amir Khusro, and the regional form called the Chutkula, which didn't have an avartan. It was just sung in free rhythm.
So what, did it come from Persia?
No, nothing came from Persia. Amir Khusro was in India, and but he originally came from outside India. So he carried those influences with him, and he is the inventor of the Tarana. And the Chutkula was created by Hussain Shah Sharki in Jaunpur. Those merged to create the Drut Bandish. And later on, Niyamat Khan, who was a Drupad singer, he worked on the Khayal, and he made it the fast composition. He elongated and made it a slow composition. And he did use some of the long means, the long glides of Drupad, and he brought that. So Khayal did not emerge from Drupad, but it was later influenced a little bit by Drupad. And the Agra Gharana singers were all Drupad singers. And in Drupad, the Nomtom Alap is very important, the 3-speed or 4-speed, multi-speed Nom, which she sings. She sang in the beginning for Jaunpuri, which not all styles sing. So, yeah.
Sumana, in your book you talk about NCTA quite a bit.
Yes.
And how it has kind of trained, especially this part of Mumbai, to become more Western in its year with bringing in SY and everything.
Yeah.
So, and now Nitambani Theatre has come up, which is also extremely Western in its pricing, it's the kind of stuff it brings in. Nobody can afford these spaces anymore. In that kind of situation, what happens, even those of us who like music don't understand any of it. We didn't grow up listening to this because one, it's become extremely niche. the theatres we visit no longer promote Indian classical music. And the newer theatres are very, very Western and exorbitantly priced. How in this ecosystem is this going to move forward?
Yeah, so it is difficult, and I must say that Carnatic music, the situation is much more positive.
Because of the
There's a non-profit that is promoting, which is acting like a moderating force to the market. I think there are many layers to this. One is just the economic imperative of the market and the whole entertainment thrust that has consumed India as a whole. Now, for instance, during the independence movement, there was a conscious effort by the independence movement, the bourgeois national movement, to support Indian classical music. That's why they started AIR, they started the Sangeet Natak Academy. Now the state is doing nothing, and the main non-profits that were set up like NCPA have completely abdicated their responsibility. So for Hindustani music, a lot of what is passing is Hindustani music, the most famous whatever. Some of them may be even well trained and have good voices. But if you ask, so people ask me, if not the market, how are we to evaluate the music? If not, you have to know the music. You have to know if are they singing, producing equivalent of literature in the rag? How are they using the rhythm? What are they original in their style? But you're right, to get to that level, you have to hear so much. So I think the situation is a little precarious right now, and which is why I felt I wanted to document this underground culture, which is keeping this music alive despite all the odds. All the odds. I mean, all of them, I know all these musicians who learn are very educated, very intelligent. They could be doing any number of things and making pots of money in this economy. But they have consciously chosen to do this. She is an MSc in botany. She was just telling me, because we spent the night at TIFR, and she was saying, it was always our dream to come there, but then she said, I chose to do music. So so I think the listening public, now, you cannot change everything, right? So I think the listening public, like small things, so I'm very grateful to Khaki Lab for, organizing this and putting their efforts to do this, because we need to, take this music to lots of people so that they slowly, it's going to be a slow process, because there's been such a vitiation from the 1990s. So, yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. Think what you talked about right now was there are some concerts which are happening in very fancy venues. And what would happen if somebody want to listen to this kind of music and they don't have access to that? So Praveen was just now telling me before the program, last evening there was a fantastic Dadra Thumri program at Thane. I asked him, was it free? So he said, no, it was at Dombivli. So he said, no, they charge 100 rupees or whatever, What happens is, what I personally feel is, this music happens in closed chambers. It doesn't happen in public. Look at how people are sitting and enjoying this music. This is what the setting is. And if you come to Mulund, Thane, you could see plenty of baitaks like this. The only thing is, nobody is inviting anybody for the program. And it might happen that people from South Bombay would not like to travel all the way to Thane and Mulund and attend those programs. But yeah, there are so many programs happening there.
It's true. Like for instance, this today, Sumana sent an invitation. It's difficult to, if you talk about a general public, we pick up our phone, we go to book my show, we book a show. We have to have avenues. We cannot be expected कि तुम बैठे हो South Mumbai में तुमको पता चलना चाहिए.
Yeah, that is true. So what they do is they are now maintaining the database of whoever are attending those programs, and they send those flyers. I mean, you'll get to see those flyers on Instagram and FB as well, right? So there are a lot of very high quality programs happening in such setups that you would not imagine that such things are happening here, right? So you wouldn't have something like air-conditioned rooms and comfy seats and nothing like that. It's like, just come and sit and just listen to, on Sundays, you can go to Kashalkar Guruji's house and listen to what he is doing. He sings from 10 to 12. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there's one thing I shouldn't so there are some non-profits, smaller non-profits, not as resource-rich as NCP, which are doing very good work, and they have things on, it's all there in my book. So this first edition arts, which has a very good channel, you can go there and patronize those artists at least. It's not a comprehensive, obviously the promoters have not put a comprehensive, they don't have a comprehensive catalogue of all the great artists, but they have picked a lot of artists. Then there is Mihir Thakur, who has a YouTube channel who's kind of putting out small concerts of many. So online you can get, and I've got the suburban music circle does a lot of good work.
People are organizing musical concerts with lunch or dinner thrown in. So about 1,000 rupees you pay. Then you go to somebody's house, there's a white hut there. So it's a very intimate kind of a food is provided, and then you hear one of those rare artists. So there's a WhatsApp group, and from which I've known a lot of these kind of programs happening. Maybe not very as many as one would like to, but I think it's trending, and it's happening in places like Juhu and more kind of affluent societies kind of thing. So I think it is trending, and I think that is going to promote Indian classical music.
No, but I think there are two strands. What he's talking about are very sort of bread and butter venues, very ordinary ones. There's very highfalutin baithaks of very wealthy people and with these fancy lunches. This is not what he's talking about. And I have my problems with that also, okay? And the kind of artists that they want in their living room, okay? But I think what Yogesh is talking about is a kind of culture that I have captured in my book, which is the underground culture, which is very straightforward. The focus is entirely on the music, not on any frills, and sometimes it's very hard. So I don't want to say, I mean, it's excellent quality, and as I've ended the book, I said, dying embers can still start a fire. So I'm not completely pessimistic, but it is precarious, the future.
This is the invitation for one tabla program on 5th of April. There was a very skilled and very knowledgeable tabla player, Pandit Arun. So every year there is a birthday. And now this is on 5th of April. Ganeshwar Sunanji is also there accompanying. Now you can see there is Vinayak Somanji, Suprit Deshpandeji, and Swapnil Visiji. Now they may not be as renowned as Zakir Hussain ji, but extremely good.
Very professional.
Absolute professional. Once one of his Guru Purnima, something which he says his student, and then he went to Pandit Yogesh Samseji, and I have listened to Swapnil. He is playing one composition with tabla. Right side, I think it was Lehra in Tridan, and left hand side it was Lehra in Rupak. Am I right?
Rupak and some 10.5 beats.
10.5 beats. Same thing happening with two different Lehras going simultaneously. Look at the amount of mathematics involved in that. Super. We are not exposed to all this. It doesn't happen in coffee places, I can assure you this.
Yeah, it doesn't. But it's, yeah.
Interesting juncture in our Baithak today, and I think there's so much more we would like to discuss and we would like to know, and we have the space, but paucity of time, we have to officially at least close the program. And thank you, ma'am, for bringing out the fact that we can't be sitting in the cocoons of our home and expecting people to tell us where the events are. So we are on Instagram, Khaki Foundation, Khaki Heritage Lab. So please do follow us, follow our pages, and you'll be updated about all the programs that are happening. I would like to, on behalf of all of us, thank Sumana ma'am, Sugandha ma'am, Director of Khaki Heritage Foundation, to please come over here and give a token of appreciation to the performers and also share his closing remarks. The appreciation is has a mark in memory of iconic historian late Chandra Dwivedi who's also Khaki inspiring force. And also the aqualine desktop calendar, actors from the CC on the wall over here. If you take some time out before you head out to appreciate this work.
Very good.
All the music lovers who are here today, thank you very much for coming here. As you all know, we all enjoy music concerts, but at Khaki especially, we believe in adding a flavor of history of that subject, and I think that is what we have achieved today with whatever glimpses of the book you gave. So I'm sure people will enjoy reading the whole book more and add to their knowledge. Thank you very much all the artists today, so we will not take much of your time.
Sugandha Laturkar.